Hey, I'm Chris Januszewski, and welcome to the Rebellious Times Podcast. And so today we've got an episode in our supply chain and logistics series, and I'm delighted to introduce you to Randy Perkins, co-founder and CEO of FreightPro. Hey, Randy, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Pleasure to be on the show, Chris.
Thanks for taking time out and joining me today. I really appreciate it. So our episode title today is Resilience on the Road, Randy Perkins on trucking, fatherhood, and founding a logistics company. Um, where are you located, Randy?
Located and based out of Reno, Nevada, right next to Tahoe. Beautiful area.
Oh, nice. I spent plenty of time over there in that area when I lived in California. We were up in Tahoe in the summer, in the winter, and then over in Reno. So yeah, love it over there.
We always say it's one of the few places where you can water ski and then go up and snow ski in the same day. It's an amazing, if you want scenery, if you want environment, it's an amazing place to be. It really is.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. And I've been to Reno. I went to Reno many years ago with a friend for SantaCon, funnily enough. And what a good time we had there. It's like a little Las Vegas, but without the kind of stress and overstimulation.
Yeah, yeah, you can get to the overstimulated areas, right? Sacramento, the Bay Area, Vegas, but you can come back in a day, so it's nice.
Yeah, love it. Right. So I always like to start with the guest story background. So obviously you're an entrepreneur. You own FreightPro. You're the co-founder and CEO of FreightPro. Um, Love to hear a little bit about your background, kind of how you got started, where you're from, and kind of build us up to becoming this entrepreneur of this successful business.
Yeah, grew up, born and raised in Northern California, bounced around quite a bit growing up. It was a very unstable environment, to say the least. We were homeless for a while, just to be very transparent. It was a rough
Okay.
upbringing. So from that standpoint, I had to step in as the adult. I have 3 other siblings that I had to take care of and look over during that time period. But yeah, it was rough to say the least. We never stayed in the same schools for longer than 3 months at a time. We were all over the place very consistently. But through it all, we maintained a close kinship from the sibling standpoint. My mother, unfortunately, she became addicted to some substances that unfortunately got the better of her. So she was pretty much non-existent in our lives, and my father did what he could, but he worked hard. But when you didn't have a higher education at that age, it was difficult for him to even have an upbringing for us. So he did what he could, but it was bounced around a lot. So everything given, the only thing that really saved me and got me out of it was sports. So athletically was a big deal for me. I had 2 siblings that had passed away within a few years of each other. So as a young adolescent, being 13, 14 years old and going through those traumatic experiences, you have a level of almost anger, right, that builds up inside of you as a child. And I was fortunate enough to have a relief there, an event of going into athletics. My father was able to get me involved into that, and then somebody had took me in, and that's kind of what got me up and off the ground. Had it not been for that, I would be just like all of my other friends, or used to be friends that are no longer with us. So I was one of the fortunate ones when it came to that. That got me out, and gave me the ability to eventually go to college and pursue college. So I understand how it is to be stuck in the grind and not be able to get out. I was one of the ones though that did have the ability to get out, and in turn also my siblings also followed suit. So it was very nice to see a change in trajectory of the bloodline.
I mean, that's an incredible story. We all have our own background of where we started, and everybody's got their own hardships and things. It sounds like you've got a particularly rough ride there kicking off. So, I mean, credit to you and your brothers and your dad for for getting through it and for living a good life, right? So, yeah, I can't imagine what that was like. How so? Tell me about you know when things are hard. We've all got to find a way to get through it, right? We've all got to figure out something that lifts us back up, that gets us excited. Some people like studying, some people will pick on a subject and kind of dig into it. Some people got the friends, they lean on the friends or a family member, right? And something that you said helped pull you out of it and bring you back to life was sports. Tell us a bit about the sports. What did you play and kind of what age were you doing it and how often were you training and enjoying these sports?
Yeah. So I got into it, like I said, around I started dabbling into sports when I was younger, 8, 9 years old. Didn't heavily get involved into it because there wasn't a lot of consistency. But when I did finally get involved, it was boxing, and then it was football, and it was basketball. Football was initially my passion. Was able to make it collegiately. Played 1 year collegiately for football before transferring to play collegiately for basketball. And then bounced around a few semi-pro leagues after that. But that was the long and short of it. Without having that in my life, there would have been no guidance. There would have been no out for me, right? Every other one of my friends is either no longer with us or incarcerated or had been incarcerated. It was a very rough world in the world that I lived in. You didn't go out after dark. You didn't have bed frames, right? For specific reasons. You want to be lower than window seals. It was legitimately that type of environment. So you grow up in a rough standard, but you figure out a way to survive. I'm very proud of my past, and I don't speak to it in regard to sympathy in the slightest. It's actually quite the opposite. It's to show the individuals that are in that spot that you can get out of it and that you can proceed forward, but it just takes your effort. You can do it, but you've got to resist the environment. Too many individuals just succumb to the environment that they're within. If you can find a way to get out, any child out there that ever listens to this podcast, especially, that's an important message. You can make it. You can do it. You just need to find your niche, find what you're passionate about, and don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. You can do it.
It's amazing advice. There's a lot of people struggling now. A lot of women, a lot of men as well, right? And men struggling often gets less spoken about, but there's a lot of pressures, and life is getting harder, and things are getting more expensive. And for a man to, play the traditional role to provide for a family, I know some people say that sounds a bit traditionalist or chauvinistic, but that's kind of what we're wired to do. When everything's expensive, when you can't afford to buy your first home, when it's difficult to get a job that pays the bills, right? A lot of men, young men, are opting out of the whole family thing, right? They don't want a family because they don't feel they can afford it, or they're waiting till they've got everything they need and financially kind of secure in inverting commas before they get started. And that's the same with women as well, delaying, motherhood. And um, it's a lot of people are going through struggles. So it's a good to hear that from a very, very tough start that you've been through, you could step out of it and kind of break free of the things that hold people back, which can be your family and your friends, right? As a kid, if you get in with the wrong crowd and pulls you in the wrong direction, that can send you on the wrong path and set you up wrong. And so it takes great strength to actually give up the things that make you comfortable, step away, take a different direction on your own, get out. I mean, it kind of relates a little bit. I grew up in Bolton, good family life. My parents got divorced, so went through that, right? And that's no fun. Good group of friends. Didn't go too off the rails, but I realized that where I grew up wasn't for me. And it's hard to understand that because everybody around you generally stays where they were born and grew up. But I felt it wasn't for me. I had to get out of the country. I had to move to Belgium on my own, where I actually sold men's wigs. That was my job, selling men's wigs. And that was the first time where I was ever truly alone, right? And what I mean is I knew nobody. So if something went wrong, I had nobody to lean on. I had no family to call. Like something went wrong, I had to figure it out myself. And it was good to help me grow up and become responsible for myself. But I'm just kind of trying to relate to your experience there. Sometimes you've got to do the really hard thing, break out your comfort zone to get to the place where you're going to be and grow.
100%. There's an article recently that I was reading. I'm huge about growth and personal development, and it was talking about getting from where you're from to where you want to be. There's this moment of adversity where you're lonely. There's a moment of loneliness because you're growing past the point of the group of friends that you used to associate with, but you're not quite at the point of getting to the group that you want to associate with. So you're in this moment of independence where as a man, you realize very quickly there's nobody there for you. It is you versus the world, and your family relies on you. And I went through that, and I'm currently overcoming that now, but it took a moment of you really have to look at yourself in the mirror, especially with what I did, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but going from something successful to starting off on your own thing, you question yourself, and you have to understand that you're working for something bigger. And that, I think, is to answer your question, Chris. You said earlier, what would you tell somebody that wants to get out of it? And we spoke to this a lot at ITS Logistics when I worked there, and it's finding your why. It's something bigger than yourself. And for me, growing up as a child, I was fortunate enough to have the why be the other siblings that I had. They said they were hungry, and the worst fear for me is to have my children grow up and tell me that they're hungry and tell me that they're cold, and, uh, and I have no way to fix that, right? And I had to deal with that as a child when my father wasn't there, when he was doing things, and the kids would look at me and ask me, "How do we eat?" And all we have is powdered milk, and that's when you can lean on something like that as a passion, and it's not about the money. For me, it's very, very little about the money. I'm content with where I am financially. It's about making an impact greater than myself so that other children don't feel that neglect later on, and other individuals that are underspoken for can be represented, and everybody has a stance there. So that would be the why. For any child, know why you're doing it. If you can understand why and it's a deep rooted why, you'll succeed.
Love it, Randy. Thank you so much. I already love this discussion already. I think we've touched on a lot of things that are going to resonate with a lot of people. So you managed to get into college, right? Having skipped around and been in many different schools, somehow you managed to get an education. You managed to learn some things, pass some
Mhm.
tests, get into college. Let's talk a little bit about college and then how your career got started before you started your own business.
Yeah, yeah. So, fresh out of high school, like I said, I played 1 year collegiately over at Feather River College. Transferred down, played down in Arizona for 1 year, played basketball. Once I got done playing with my first year of basketball, I decided to go try to pursue money. So I decided to leave and jumped into some semi-professional leagues. At which point I blew up my knee. Then finished up, went back to University of Nevada, Reno, up in Reno, where I pursued a degree in kinesiology. And then from that point, I stumbled across logistics through my brother. Oddly, I ran two previous gyms. I was in the fitness industry. Ran CrossFit USA for a little while down in Phoenix. Came up to Reno and was part of the Fitness Connection group there, where I helped run the fitness training program. My brother got done graduating. He played at Wartburg College, played basketball there. Very proud of him as well. Very successful career in his own right. And he started working at ITS Logistics. And he says, "Randy, you need to come here. You got to come here. It's a great niche for you. You'd be perfect. Good money. Come on board." So I came there. Remember it to this day. Went in, had my interview with them, and from that day forward, changed my life. I started with them. I had previous background in logistics. I My father at one point worked at Napa Auto Parts and then transitioned over to a company called Smith Detroit Diesel Power Products, and that's where he sold Detroit diesel engines. Um, and from that point, how do I say it? I didn't really find the industry glamorous, and it's not glamorous to be honest with you, but I didn't want to be in it at that point. I saw the way that my dad was treated. I saw the way that the industry was in general. Wasn't really professionalized when I was a young adult. Then my brother had me introduced into ITS Logistics. Fast forward, 10, 15 years later, and I start working there, and it's a brokerage firm. And I realized so quickly that drivers are amazing people, but they are underrepresented. They are underspoken for. So at ITS Logistics, we became, in my opinion, a pillar for excellence in what comes to engagement, driver relationships, maintaining those types of real true bonds with our partner carriers. We work diligently to do that. Um,
So we're just
ITS had
very quickly, when you talk about drivers, what kind of drivers are we talking about driving the big 18 wheelers or small vans, local trips, long haul? What are we talking here?
We're talking CDL drivers, sir. We're talking your big 80,000-pound missiles going down the highway, right? We're not talking about your small mom and pop, minivans going down the road. These are things they're hauling some heavy haul equipment that's quite frankly dangerous on the road if you have the wrong people operating them, right?
Right.
Um, and these drivers on the road, there's a stigma where I hear uneducated. I hear that quite a bit. I hear, um, they're not friendly. I hear that they're mean, they're rude. I hear that they're aggressive. That is so wrong. And I don't know where the stereotypes came from, and maybe back in the 70s, maybe something was there. I don't know. That's before my time, and that's when DAT was really dial a phone at a truck stop. And I wasn't there, so I don't wanna speak on behalf of what was back then, but what I do know confidently is I've been a professional in logistics now for 11 years, and over my 11 years, I've seen true professionals in the industry, from carriers to drivers, everywhere in between, but publicly facing that doesn't get represented enough. Publicly facing, the driver specifically, sub to the carrier who hires the driver. The CDL driver profession used to be a badge of honor, and now it's not. Not the way that it used to be. And the quality drivers that are on the road that I know of are highly educated, right? They are professional, they're respectful, they're courteous. They're not mean. They're not these false stereotypes that I even felt as a kid growing up. And when I got into ITS logistics, that's when I started discovering that. I became, vice president of operations and capacity for a long time there. We worked diligently to make sure that these drivers were treated well, but I was at that stage working at ITS, I feel like I couldn't impact the masses the way that I could if I were to do it on my own. I worked there and I was grateful for my experience at ITS. It developed me into the executive that I am today. But last year, upon having my third child, my daughter, there were some health complications where I decided to resign from ITS. At that point, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life, but I had a calling. I kept feeling the fact that drivers were neglected, they're underappreciated and valued. And then on the flip side, you also have this other territory of underqualified drivers, the lack of quality drivers that aren't being handled or taken care of. And the barriers of entry to have a CDL license and the way that there's workarounds that are in place, and now it's getting called out publicly. I did a podcast, 3 or 4 years ago calling the same exact circumstance out, and that was when it really became front of mind to me, but that's the reason why I resigned from ITS Logistics and decided to start FreightPro. To your point, it's not about the money, it's not about any of that, it's about doing it the right way and making sure that drivers have a long-term career.
So, yeah, we see on the roads obviously huge trucks coming past, and I think they have to be the best drivers on the road, right? Because if they're not, if they make a mistake, they can take out multiple cars, multiple people. Like you say, it's a massive missile that they're driving, and I think we probably don't appreciate, how difficult it is to do that job. Could you give us a little insight into the kind of lifestyle of a driver, what it kind of takes to do the job?
Yeah, first, and this isn't a perfect world, this is where the blemishes will come into play, but I'll speak in a perfect world at first. In order to even obtain a CDL license, you have to go through a multitude of training tests through a valid training CDL provider. Once you graduate from that schooling, you still have 6 months to a year where you have to do some sort of mentorship program, work with some sort of almost a skill trade mentorship, right? Where you're not even able to work independently before you can even get onto the road on your own. And then once you're on the road on your own, I mean, think about it. Just coming home every day, Chris, you live in a world where you have traffic. Think about how many times you get cut
Well, yeah,
off
in Austin for sure.
and slight agitation occurs, right? Think about if you're a truck driver going across the 48 states. You're going from Los Angeles, California to New Jersey. How frequently drivers that are frustrated because you have to drive the speed limit want to pass you and cut you off. Having that type of calm and control of a behavioral side of you and being able to not explode and being that mature in and of itself is something that needs to be praised upon. And then you get to shippers and receivers where a lot of times they don't even allow you to use amenities. These drivers will show up at a
Oh,
facility
man.
and they're disrespected. They won't even let you use the bathrooms in some occasions. They won't let you disconnect from your trailer to go use a facility. They make you stay on site sometimes. This has happened. I've been part of this. But they will tell you, do not let your driver leave, but they also can't use our bathrooms. Well, how are they
That's
supposed to
rough
get
'cause
food?
it's not like in a big truck you can pull into a Starbucks, right? Like,
No,
there's only certain places you can stop.
no. What other profession do you know of, Chris, where somebody says, "Hey, I have to use the bathroom," and they say, "Here's a bottle."
Yeah, no,
When have you ever heard of that?
I've not heard of that.
That is something that I've seen firsthand. I've been on the phone with a truck driver being told that by somebody, because there's a lack of respect. And this is where there's ambiguity in the industry right now. Is the lack of respect is a double-edged sword, because it's also somewhat in a certain and in regard self-inflicted, because the barrier of entries became so neglected, right? Truck driving schools, you just there's stuff on the internet right now. 550 truck driving schools just got discontinued because of lack of barrier of entry, or being bribed to give truck drivers CDL licenses that didn't deserve it,
Ooh.
right? So you have now a lack of barrier of entry in order to even get into the skill trade. And then on top of that, it's easy to put on a facade MC number from a motor carrier perspective. So now you have fraudulent activity taking place. So you lost respect because, and I don't want to necessarily say the government, but the government has failed to adequately uphold the barriers to get in, to ensure that the quality is there, to make sure that a CDL driver is treated as a profession, as a badge of honor, right? And I would venture to say majority of all CDL drivers are kind-hearted, great individuals that did it the right way. But the select few that haven't, it's making it catastrophic from a stereotype standpoint and everything else. And this all could have been, the acts that are being put in place right now and the legislation that's being put in place right now could have all been avoided had we taken the right steps and done our jobs properly 20, 30 years ago, when we started having these drivers be professionally graded to get in.
So let's thank you. Thank you for kind of sharing and exposing the way drivers are treated and some of the challenges we have in this whole industry. I'd love to move over to FreightPro now, learn about the business, learn about your customers, learn about your drivers.
Yeah, yeah. So like I said, we started Freight Pro from the start with the idea to break the mold, right? I saw a niche here where it was below what I was currently invested in ITS, which was at the carrier level, right? The level below that was what I felt like was underrepresented. So when I got out of ITS logistics, I really wanted to impact the driver level. That's where my heart was at. So I decided, let's create a recruiting platform, but let's do it the right way. These recruiting platforms, as I mentioned earlier, they're the premise a lot of times is based off of churn, right? And the reality is that's simple math. The higher the churn rate, the more you need the customer, the more the customer has to stay with you. It's a perpetual wheel, right? You're on a hamster wheel at that point. I want to change that. I want to change the philosophy to say a recruiting platform should not be there as a replacement funnel. It should not be there to simply plug a gap and put duct tape over the Titanic hole. What a recruiting platform should be there for is to support and provide growth opportunities for your organization, right? So the carrier needs to fix the operational side of that. We want to work with carriers that are operationally sound. We want to work with carriers that truly care about the driver, that actually speak openly about the pros and the cons, right? Not just what's great or what they need to do to sell the driver, but what is realistic. There are times where you might have to stay overnight, but a good carrier will also tell that driver, we will pay you for detention and layover. They don't feed them lines and say you'll be back every day for sure, guaranteed. And then the reality of the situation contradicts that. Right, that's the reason why you have high turnover in the industry and why drivers, especially new drivers, they wash out from company to company to company, and your average turnover rate is every 4 months for a truck driver. That's not safe for anybody either, because then you're not used to your dispatcher, you're not used to the lanes that you're running because you're constantly changing. So I decided to create Freight Pro. It's bigger than a recruiting platform. I want it to be a network center. I want it to be a place for all logistics. I want it to end up being a forum where drivers come on because they love Freight Pro, because the way that we represent them, because we care about them as more than just a numerical value. And I want the carriers to come work with us because we're going to make sure that we uphold that standard with them as well. So we established Freight Pro to engage drivers. I want to have an army of drivers that loves Freight Pro because of what we stand for, what we represent, not just on a recruiting platform, but I, as an individual, want the company to go out and represent legislation. We need stronger parking. I know that legislation just went out for a better bill for to have more parking for drivers. That took way too long, and there's still not nearly enough for truck drivers out there right now. We are way too short on that. Giving them extra accommodations, those types of things, ensuring that detention and layover is actually justifiably paid to a driver when he sits overnight. right? Driving our carriers to make sure that if you need to pay for room and board because you have a day cab and your driver has to stay overnight because of a winter storm, you're paying them. You're compensating them for that. That is an employee. There is no other profession in this world that I know of where you can tell an employee, hey, go do this, and they get stuck somewhere and you say, do it on your own dime. We're not paying you for it. I've
Right.
never heard of that. So FreightPro's there to we came in and we want to truly validate the drivers. We're up to 20 questions right now on a profiling technique for drivers to make sure that we're adequately collecting the most imperative information as far as what's going to make them a happy employee. Then what we're doing is we're on the carrier customer side because we also could go customer direct. There's regular customers that aren't considered a carrier that need to have local drivers as well. So we're looking to also target that audience. But the biggest customer audience for us is our partner carriers, and we're guiding them. We're helping them on, hey, you're not just clicking a button and hoping for the best. We're not Craigslist. We want you to look at their intro video. We have our drivers upload an introduction video so that you can see how well educated are they? How articulate are they? Are they what you want? Do they have the experience that you want? Those are person to person human elements that are missed in the industry. Everything right now is a clickbait. Everything right now is you just click the button and that is it. There's no human touch. At Freight Pro, we also offer the fact that if you're having an issue, come and call us. We'll pick up the phone. And if we don't, we'll call you back within a day. And if you tell us, hey, we haven't gotten any answers, we'll uphold our promise to make sure that we give you drivers that will answer the phone. That's missed. And I'm not doing this to praise Freight Pro. I'm doing this simply call out the blemishes in the industry. And that's what we just want to do. We want to make sure that there's a human element added to the technology. We want the technology to promote growth, not to supplement for a deficiency at the recruiting level of the carrier.
Love it. I love your passion for this and for, really changing the way that drivers are looked after and changing the way that the companies are treating the drivers as well. So it's amazing. It's amazing work that you're doing here. Um, what what sort of message would you have for drivers themselves? Obviously, somebody's um, has a leaning towards this type of career and lifestyle. What would be your message to them?
There would be two messages, to be honest with you, if I could. Do you mind?
Fire away.
The first one would be for the current driver audience. You're more appreciated and valued than there's front-facing recognition for. And on behalf of everybody out there that purchases products, that has goods, I want to say thank you guys for that. And I want to be here to help represent that. And that's not clout. That's not to boast. That's me saying that I've seen firsthand how bad you can be treated. And I want to help be part of the solution, not just saying it, but doing it. I want that, and I want anybody who wants to help represent that to stand up for that to come be part of it. I don't care if you want a job. Come on to Freight Pro and just be part of our audience because eventually I want to expand this to social media and to expansion engagements to make sure that any driver that's associated to Freight Pro has a voice. You can vote later on what you think is best. What do you want in the industry? Not just what does the industry need from you, but what do you want? That would be for the current driver audience right now, and thank you for the ones that have retired. Um, but more importantly, for the newer audiences, we need to find a way to target you. What do we do to get younger drivers more actively involved in the industry? We're j I want them to know that there will be change occurring. These patterns of behavior that they're if I have anything to do with it, gonna be a thing of the past. These negative things that have been seen or spoken to. And I want the younger audiences to know that the future of the CDL driver is solid, it is sound, and there are good people out there that will take care of you. And we need more younger audiences. And I'm tired of people saying they just don't want to work hard. That's not an answer. That is not an answer. And whether or not you believe that is irrelevant, quite frankly. If they don't come to you, you have to go to them because if we don't have the younger generation buying into this, then we don't have a logistics industry. And guess what happens to our cost of goods? It is going to skyrocket. Everybody needs transportation. Everybody needs it. So thank you for those doing it. And I look forward to the ones in the future that are courageous enough to actually jump on board because you find the right companies and it's a great profession.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you, Randy. We're not finishing the podcast now, but it's a good seems like a good point for you to let people know how to reach out to you and how to reach out to FreightPro.
Yeah, yeah, that would be amazing. You could always reach out to me personally on LinkedIn, Randy Perkins. I'm very easy to find there. I'm also looking to influence the industry on larger impacts, like I said. So please, if you want to help take a stance for anything that you believe in, that what I'm saying, or you just feel passionate like I do, come on board. Otherwise, Freight Pro itself, you can go to www.freightpro.ai directly. It's a very easy process to do. You're more than welcome to register without even making any payment. Hop on board and see what we're about. It's free to hop on and just see and look into what everything is inside, both as a driver and as a carrier. So feel free to do that. We also have social medias on X, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn, so you can look up Freight Pro on that as well. Or you can email me directly. I am not opposed to that. Randy at freightpro.ai is my direct email address. You can engage me directly on there, and I will respond to you. There won't be a bot. It may take a day or two, but I promise anybody who wants to reach out to me and is truly interested in impacting the industry, feel free to engage me directly.
Brilliant, Randy. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people reach out to you here. Now, so
Awesome.
you're an entrepreneur, but you're a little different in that obviously you're running a business, but you're also taking a lot on your shoulders, right? You're taking responsibility for a whole industry here. How do you how do you detach from that? I'd love to hear a little bit more about Randy when he's not working, about family life. Like, how do you keep yourself motivated outside of your vocation?
It is my family. 100%. The very short blunt answer, it's my wife and it's my children. Um, have a lovely, wonderful, supporting wife. Have 3 beautiful kids, have 2 daughters and 1 son. My oldest daughter's 10 going on 11. I have a 4-year-old son, his birthday was yesterday, just turned 4, St. Patrick's Day, and a daughter who turned
Nice.
1 on the 11th. So that's everything to me. So if I'm not here, those are my outlets. That's the reason why I do what I do, and I'm passionate about that. And exercise, exercise. In my opinion, a strong body equals a strong mind, and I'm an odd breed where I have an ability to go nonstop, and if I'm not very aware and attentive of that, it will impact me from a work-life balance standpoint, and I have to make sure that with how much I'm taking on, Chris, I do have those outlets. So I make sure I think the most important thing for me is making sure that when I'm not working, I am not working. It's it's not being around my kids that matters. It's being there. It's being present when I'm there, right? If I'm there, but my mind is elsewhere, what point is me being there if I'm zoned off at a TV? So when I'm with my family, we don't watch screens. We go to the park. We're doing something athletic. I coach my daughter's fifth grade basketball team, for example, right now. I'd love to start an AAU program, but being out in society, impacting children, my own children, but also their friends is that's huge for me. And I think that it comes from a place where I didn't get that as a child. I would love to have had that. And I later on, full transparency, Chris, I want to do something that impacts more and is more broad than just drivers and logistics. I want to impact communities from a supporting underprivileged children standpoint. That's another passion of mine that I'm very serious and committed about that in the next 2 years I will definitely go within the county of Washoe County. I will have an impact with children, and I would love to go national as well. I want my family's name to be represented for helping people, not just money. Um, but those are my outlets. It's odd because I even speak outlets, and it's always about the same things. It's humanity. I don't feel like I'm working, right? It's an odd that's an odd question for me because when you're in a mind state of just always wanting to be the best for the people around you, I don't feel like I'm necessarily plugged in. I'm just this is me by nature and I'm passionate about it. So it just feels like it's a fun game. It's a game for me in a sense, like a basketball game. Like I never thought of basketball as a career. I thought of basketball as a fun thing that I just coincidentally was able to make a little bit of money off of.
Love it. You're doing a lot to. I can see how passionate you are about making a change in the world, and we need people like you. You know, when we can't necessarily rely on. I don't want to go down the wrong path here, but we struggle to rely on the people in charge and the people we put in place and the people we vote for. You know, I think we've got to do it as communities and look after our families first and the communities around us. And so I love that you're so focused on this and doing it and focused on your family. And so yeah, credit to you.
And Chris, I know we don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but there are a few things, right, where they're being missed in society right now, and it's not just in trucking, but it's treating people with common courtesy, right? And it's I know that sounds cliche, but it's not about how you look. It's about who you are as an individual and giving people a chance, giving people the opportunity, and being the right person, right? Like my son, for example, he will be raised, and then this may draw red flags, but he will be raised. You never touch a woman or child. It does not matter. It does not matter what they do to you. You are a man, and you should be able to restrain yourself enough. You should never lay your hands on a woman or child ever, in my opinion. And that's probably something that's going to probably there might be people that are for it or against it. There's never a circumstance, in my opinion, and that's how my son will be raised. He will hold the door for people as they walk by. He will say please and thank you. He will say yes, ma'am, no, sir. Those are absolutes that in society I would love to impact. And that goes back to the driver thought, right? Where if you talk to a driver, how are you doing, sir? Not where's my freight? Why are you 20 minutes late? But was there traffic? Were you in an accident? Are you okay? A little bit of humanity will go so far. And if everybody does 1% more, the world would be way better.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm totally on board and try and do the same thing with my kids, and we look back to our grandparents' generation and they seem to behave, how do I put it? Respect seemed to come as standard and people behave with a lot more reserve, right? And over time, it seems to have dropped away and a lot of the standards of society seem to obviously drop. Like we can see it all around us. We can see it in music and movies and the themes we're presented with that kind of they try to steer us in certain directions. And so I think we need to reel it in and swing the pendulum back over a little bit, to maybe that world.
Maybe a little bit of respect is earned, not given. Maybe that's a concept that maybe younger generations should pivot back to, right? Is you earn that respect. It's not you don't automatically walk in the door and deserve to be the manager, right? You don't just get to one day wake up and be a millionaire. You earn that respect through hard work, through dignity, through proper ethics, right? And I think that that's something that if more people did, to your point, the world would be a much better place.
Yeah. Love it. What a great note to finish on. Thank you so much, Randy. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I'll look forward to catching up with you.
Yeah, it was a blessing, Chris. You have a wonderful and blessed day, and I'll catch up with you after I get back from my trip.
Love it. Safe travels.
Thank you. Be blessed. Bye bye.